Good morning. Welcome to the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Mary Ann Atwell Hardy, and I'm the licensed practitioner here. I'm other things too as well, but that's what I am today. So I thank you for being here, for helping us prepare this space for what will follow, and preparing each one of us individually to open our hearts and minds to whatever we need to hear, wherever we need to focus. So I'm going to start, as we always do, with a meditation. I'm going to do some readings first, and if one of these speaks to you, please take it into meditation. And then we'll have about 15 minutes of quiet, and then I'll bring us out of meditation. So this is from Abraham Hicks. Fear itself is not the impediment to your joyful life, but fear is pointing at the impediment to your joyful life. And just as the feeling of fear is within you, the impediment is also within you. And now I'm going to read some that we heard a couple of weeks ago. Deepak Chopra says, relinquish your attachment to the known. Step into the unknown, and you will step into the field of all possibilities. You will have excitement, adventure, mystery. You will experience the fun of life, the magic, the celebration, the exhilaration, and the exaltation of your own spirit. And Ralph Marston says, go ahead and face that fear. Make that effort. Move forward into new territory and fully live the grand possibilities with which you're blessed. Boldly face life, and you'll find it to be better than you ever imagined. Oh, so take those in to the quiet, and we will just listen to some soothing music for about 15 minutes. now, holding on to that peace that we've cultivated within, knowing that we are nurtured by the greatest of all, Mother, Father, at all times. I just invite you to come back into the room, keeping that smile on your face. And I want to thank you for participating in our meditation service. It does make a difference. It makes a difference to each person that participates. It makes a difference to everybody here at Sophie's, and it makes a difference in the world. Thank you. So now we'll take a break, and at 10:45, our service will resume. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living and our Sunday celebration service. My name is Heather Abbott. I have the honor and privilege of being a licensed spiritual practitioner with this amazing community. We welcome all of you that have been attending our service, our classes, and our special events. And we welcome all of you who are visiting for the very first time. We see all of you, we know who you really are, and we appreciate you, and we celebrate you. We are grateful that you have chosen to include us in your morning. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, single fathers raising their children, lesbian couples with two mothers, and gay couples whose partners take on both roles with their children, and any other person who has ever nurtured someone in their lives from a place of unconditional love. This video is for all of you. We are having some technical difficulties with that video. I will just go forward. And my gratitude and appreciation goes out to Marianne Hardy, one of our licensed spiritual practitioners, who facilitated beautiful meditation to set the stage for our service to unfold within. Thank you very much, Marianne. The theme for the year 2022 is Living Everyday Wonder. Our theme for the month of May is Emotions. Carol Cross's talk title today is The Fear Factor. Now, just wanted to let you know that because we are at Sophie's and we are so grateful to be here, but it being Mother's Day and they are going to have a restaurant full of people very soon, we are having an abbreviated service today. So you may notice that we are missing some of our key elements that are here every Sunday, but I appreciate your flexibility in that. And now I would ask you to please take a moment to turn within as I speak a word of blessing on today's service. Recognizing the one source, the one power, the one creative energy back of all there is. Knowing that source is infinite wisdom, incredible love, all-enveloping peace. I know that that energy is surrounding us, supporting us, fueling us, and funding us in every conceivable way. I know that as the truth of me, as I know that as the truth of each of you that are listening to me today, that we are all one with that peace, love, and joy. We are all one with the spirit that is the energy back of all. I speak a word of blessing on this sacred service today. Blessing Carol as she comes forward with her talk today, knowing that she is listening to Spirit for the words that will bless us. Grateful for her willingness to step forward in Dusty's absence. And I speak a word of blessing on Dusty as she is away from us today. I speak a word of blessing on Marianne for her beautiful meditation, and to Cindy for her gift of song that she brings to us today. I speak a word of blessing on Sean for coming in early to help us set up the space, and a blessing on Ava for her mastery in all things AV. And I speak a word of blessing on our community for each of you that make up this amazing place that we call home. I speak a word of blessing on Sophie's for their generosity in allowing us to be here each Sunday. And I speak a word of blessing on our center, the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living, for its role in our lives to give us this amazing community to be all that we can be and to be our true selves. I'm so grateful for these truths, and I ask you to anchor this prayer with me with our words, and so it is. The readings for today are from Mary Oliver and Joni Mitchell. In Blackwater Woods, Mary Oliver says, "To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go." And in Woodstock, Joni Mitchell sings, "We are stardust, we are golden, we are billion-year-old carbon, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden." Now please welcome with me the amazing Cindy Johnson.
Let's see. We have sound. The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time. Any fool can do it. There ain't nothing to it. Nobody knows how we got to the top of the hill. But since we're on our way down, might as well enjoy the ride. The secret of love, opening up your heart. It's okay to feel afraid, but don't let it stand in your way. No, no, no. 'Cause anyone knows that love is the only road. Since we're only here for a while, might as well show some style. Give us a smile. Isn't it a lovely ride? Sliding down, gliding down. Try not to try too hard. It's just a lovely ride. The thing about time is that time isn't really real. It's just your point of view. How does it feel for you? Einstein said he could never understand it all. Planets spinning through space. Smile upon your face. Welcome to the human race. Isn't it a lovely ride? Sliding down, gliding down. Try not to try too hard. It's just a lovely ride. The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. That just was so beautiful. I'd never heard that song before. Apparently it was James Taylor, but to me it's always going to be a Cindy Johnson song. So I know she's certainly done her job of softening up my heart. I'm sure she's done it for you as well. So welcome everybody to our Mother's Day celebration. A special acknowledgement for those of you who are moms or grandmoms or perform that mothering role in whatever way it is. You know, what you do is heroic, and we don't acknowledge it enough. But we know. So thank you. So that's actually why I'm here. A couple of months ago, well, 3 or 4 months ago, Dusty said that she wanted me to do the Mother's Day talk because she wanted a mother to talk about motherhood. And so, because I thought mothering is really where my greatest area of spiritual growth has been, I'm like, okay, sure. Said, anything particularly about motherhood you'd like me to talk about? And she said, yes, fear. I said, fear? I don't want to talk about motherhood and fear. I want to talk about motherhood and love or joy or compassion or really? On a a month about emotions. They give fear to Mother's Day. I mean, come on. I don't want to do that. But then, of course, I realized if I'm that resistant to it, obviously I need to be looking into it. So, darn that Dusty Ripplemeyer. So, I began there is a thing from Big CSL with, quotes and stories and things. And I looked at that and went, this is not doing it for me. It was not focused on Mother's Day. It was fear in general, but it just, so I went looking, and it turns out it's amazing for something that is such a major part of our lives, how little writing there is or resources about parenting as a spiritual activity, especially around fear. I mean, I know a lot of our spiritual leaders have not been parents, Jesus and the Pope and, a lot of those kind of guys, but it's pretty important. So most of the stuff that I found came sort of from the work of A Course in Miracles. And I think probably most of you are familiar with their idea that really all emotions come down to two things. If it's a spiritual thing, it comes down to love. And if it's a human thing, it comes down to fear. And A Course in Miracles, they say that when you're in the space of spirit and the space of love, then you don't experience fear. And when you're in the space of fear, you don't experience love. And, I get that intellectually. I get that in that spiritual level, in that I know that that's true, that, fear and those kinds of things are an illusion. And love is the truth. And love is eternal. And so, in that way, fear doesn't exist. And I have nothing but respect for people who can parent from that space. But that just wasn't my experience. My experience, so much of my parenting, I have love entwined with fear. So I'm feeling fear, but I feel like it comes from a place of love, not being the opposite of love. And when I'm feeling fear, don't you try to tell me that I'm not feeling love for my son. So that was a little difficult at first because I couldn't find any gurus that I could quote about how my experience had been. But just on Wednesday, Heather had this wonderful service about confidence. And one of the things we talk about spiritual confidence is if you receive a call from the universe, you got to just surrender and know that the universe is going to provide the resources you need to answer that call. So that's what I did. I've always been someone who believes in the power of story in teaching and learning. And once I let go, I realized the universe had delivered 3 wonderful stories that really helped me distill my thinking on this topic. So, and this is one of these signs that this was the universe is doing is, maybe 3 weeks ago, my husband, out of the blue, who hasn't been in a movie theater for 3 years due to COVID and doesn't go to movies that much anyway, he said, "Oh, there's this movie I heard about that I want to see." And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's called Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm like, never heard of it. Looking it up on Fandango. Oh, it stars Michelle Yeoh. I love her. That sounds great. It has a 97% approval rate on Rotten Tomatoes. Is that even possible? And, it's playing in 2 hours right down the road. Okay, let's do it. Let's go there. So I walked into it blind, and if there happen to be any procrastinators out there who haven't taken care of your Mother's Day presents yet, if you took your mom to this movie with you, it would be a Mother's Day that she would never forget, because this is an unbelievable movie. And motherhood is a big theme of it, but it's about so much more. It's love and family and identity and making mistakes and recovering and planning a future and identity and redemption. And it's a very unusual movie. I'll admit that for the first half, I was like, I don't even know what's going on. But it was beautiful and it was intriguing. And then I was like, oh, I think I know what's going on. I'm not sure. I don't know why this has a 97%. Got to the last bit, and what Dusty would say is, and what I would say is, phenomenal. And the one thing else I will say about this, because I want you to have your own fresh experience, is that one of the topics it deals with is this idea of the multiverse. The idea that there are multiple physical universes in our space-time continuum. It's like a super big theme in the Marvel movies right now. And in fact, this weekend, what opened but Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which is what most moms are probably going to be taken to for the movies this weekend. But it's also like a really big topic among actual physicists and academicians and things. Is this real? Is it not real? Physicists, cosmologists, psychologists, philosophers are all in this big debate about it. So it made me think, okay, what do I think? I said, well, I don't think, I know. So if there's one thing I know about God, it is she is a creator. And do I think that this is the only physical universe that she's created? No, I don't think that. I don't think that for a minute. I bet there's tons. There may be an infinite number of other multiverses. We just happen to be in this one. So at least I got to thinking about, okay, so then I don't have to talk about fear everywhere. I can just talk about fear in this multiverse. That narrows it down at least. And so then I'm started to think about, what do I know about this multiverse? What are the rules of this multiverse? I don't know, what's the foundation? And then I realized I'd been given that story just a couple of weeks earlier by our own Andy Ross. And he did this great service called Say Yes to the Yes, part of which was discussing the story of Genesis, which is, the Christian religion's tradition, the foundational story of this multiverse. So in Genesis, there is nothing, and then God creates everything. And ultimately, she creates the first two humans, Adam and Eve, and she creates this place called the Garden of Eden for them to live in. So what is this Garden of Eden? And I will just say, from my perspective, I don't like, when I think about the divine realm, the word heaven means the place where God dwells. So that's here, and it's there, and it's everywhere. So, and it's so anthropomorphized. I don't like that word. So the word I use for that divine realm, in my mind, is the God goo. Because I think it's a place that's just energy, it's just spirit, but it's where every one of our little bits of spirit are just absolutely one with God. That's what the God goo is to me. So Eden is a place where God has brought the qualities of the God goo experience into a tangible physical universe. So that sounds great, right? And there Adam and Eve are, and they've got everything they need. But there's this one thing. There is this tree with the knowledge of good and evil. And as Andy pointed out, just so incredibly, God built the garden. It's not like the tree just appeared there by accident. It's like, oh, who put that tree there? No, God put the tree there. So God has a purpose. The tree had a reason and had a purpose to be there. Okay? And so if that's true, why? And and as Andy said, the that the there's some music going on that's a little distracting. So, but he said we have free choice, but he said, come on, we were always going to eat from the fruit because it's for our good. It's part of our evolution. Say, okay, well, why would we do that? Why would we choose to leave the garden for this world when, in what God says, she says, if you eat from that fruit, you will certainly know death. So why would we choose that? Why would we choose to leave the garden to go live in this place where there is death and there is illness and there's pain and there is all this stuff that we sort of sum up and call it fear? Why would we do that? So I took it into meditation, and this is my answer. I don't have a guru answer. I have my answer. And the thing is, when we're in the God goo, or when we're in the garden, certainly when we're in the God goo, loving is just automatic. I mean, there's no choice. It's just how it is. It's like in this multiverse, we're only here if we breathe. If we aren't breathing, we're not in this multiverse anymore. So loving is just what we do. That's all we do. That's how it is in the God goo. But how much harder is it to come to a material world and choose to love? Choose to love and pour our heart and soul into another person when we know we have a 100% guaranteed result that we're going to lose our beloved. Because everything physical in this multiverse has an expiration date. Now, do we lose them? No, because of course their spiritual essence goes back to the God goo. Our spiritual essence goes back to the God goo. We'll again be one in the God goo. But that's not all that we love on this physical plane. You know, we love the hugs and the kisses and the meals and the celebrations and the walks on the beach and, you know, all of those physical things that we associate with those people. And those things we will lose. And for me, that presented itself, or that's shown up for me most clearly in my role as a mother. So in the same talk, Andy was talking about his daughter going to her first dance, and he says, why do I mourn my child aging? Because parenthood is pain. Pain is parenthood. And that's, you know, sort of my experience, that the best day of my life was the day my son was born. It was the day that most felt like a miracle, even though it's something that's happened a Google of times before, but not to me. And holding him, and he looked like an angel. You know, he looked like those paintings in the medieval paintings, because he shone with that special light of the divine that was still clinging to him because he was so freshly from the God goo. And I was just filled with complete, unconditional, spiritual love, not just for him, but, you know, for my husband and for the hospital and for my friends and family and really the world, you know. I was in the garden when he was born. And then that lasted for 24 hours. And then I got kicked out of the garden when the hospital said, time for you to go home. Here's your baby. Good luck. And so from being here in the garden, I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know how to be a mom. I don't know how to take care of this creature. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have all your training and your education and your experience and your machines and and we go home to our house and we baby proofed our house. We put the little plastic things in and we got the baby gates. And I'm like, everything in this house is a danger to the baby. Everything. The furniture could fall over. The blind cords could choke him. Or, we got to nail down all the windows so he doesn't fall out, And the buttons on our shirt, they could fall out. He could choke. Everything is a danger because they are so helpless. They can't do anything. But, you get through a few days. And one night, he's sleeping on your chest and they look so peaceful. And they still have that glow. And I'm like, okay, this is the best. I am one with God. I'm one with him. I'm in the garden again. And then he throws up. And I realize, I have to give him a bath. I don't know how to give him a bath. How do you give this squirmy, slimy, soapy child a bath and not drown him? Back in the valley of fear. And that's just my cycle of parenthood. And especially that, after the first year, you start to get your, some kind of grounding. And they get to the point after the first year, they can actually feed themselves somewhat. So, they're not totally dependent on you. You have been the center of their life because you had to be, because they could not survive. But they start to be able to do some things. And then they start to walk. And as soon as they start to walk away from you. And every day, every year, you lose some of them. Or you're moved more and more to the periphery. So they go in daycare and preschool and school, and they get involved in sports and dancing or art or science. They have best friends, and eventually they have boyfriends and girlfriends and they friends, until someday they pack up their bags and your home is no longer their home. And every one of those sort of steps cracks your heart a little bit, because it's like a part of your heart is now living outside of your experience. But a bigger part of your heart is filled with joy, because you love them so much that that's what you want, is you want them to have the biggest, juiciest, fullest life possible. And that means that you gotta let go and let them go be who they are. And even if they don't leave, because either you need them or they need you, that chips your heart a little bit too, because you don't want to ever cheat them of any experience. And so, moms, you can't please us, And that's, I think, true of all experience, most relationships, that parent role is particularly intense, but all of our love relationships are this thing of, loving and having to let go, bonding and disagreeing, It's just, that's the nature of life in this, this metaverse. And so then it made me think, okay, well, why is that? Why would we choose that? Because, we got all the love we want back up in the God goo. And my answer to that, after some meditation, is that it allows us to experience some wonderful things that we can't ever experience in the God goo. So what was important, or, one of the things that's really big about that foundational story, the tree with the knowledge of good and evil, is it's not the tree of evil, it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that really speaks to our paradox that this life, where we know spirit, we know God, and we also know the flesh, we know the human, we know this material life. And we're trying to like keep a foot in both worlds, and that's not an easy tightrope to walk. And so, of course, I love those experiences in the garden when I am really feeling my oneness with spirit, feeling I am all of those great God qualities. But you know what I can't experience in the God goo or in the garden? I can't experience courage. I can't experience hope. I can't experience willing, loving sacrifice. I can't experience trust. I can't experience faith. Because all of those qualities are qualities that only exist in this human dimension to assist us in getting over that fear, over that pain, over all that stuff, and make that connection with the God side, with the spiritual, with the garden. And, those are the qualities that often we celebrate the most about this hero's journey that we call a human life. So that's what I think. And so I disagree. They have one of our quotes from the CSL where Ernest Holmes said that fear is the antithesis of faith. I said, I don't think so. I think fear is the prerequisite for faith. It's like the foundation of faith, because if there's no fear, there's no faith. Adam and Eve weren't faithful. They were just kind of clueless. They're like the story of the goldfish, where if you ask a goldfish, how's the water? The goldfish goes, well, what's water? So you take the fish out of the water, and the fish is like, oh, I like water. So, I think we come here for the fear factor. For the fear factor that allows us to experience these other qualities that we need to get over our fear and go back to the garden. Because we are golden. We are the golden thread of God's stuff. And we are billion-year-old carbon. And trying to manage all of this for a limited amount of time in this multiverse is what I think fear is. Because just like that tree, God created fear. So there has to be a purpose for it, and a purpose that's for our good. And that's what I think. In the infinity of time, we choose to spend a moment choosing a love that's difficult, choosing an experience of fear, and figuring out how we overcome it and go back to our truth. So the final story I'm just going to say about this was a story that I realized I'd seen a little bit earlier that really incorporates all of this. And it's from that great source of spiritual wisdom, Ted Lasso. Any Ted Lasso fans out there? So if you look at Ted Lasso, there's a lot of people who get kicked out of the garden and trying to get their way back in the garden in the Ted Lasso series. But if you don't know, Ted Lasso is an American football coach who gets a job coaching soccer with a British professional soccer team, even though he knows nothing about soccer. So the middle of season 1, he's got this incredible star soccer player, but he is plagued with the problem of hubris, overarching pride, arrogance. He acts like a jerk, okay? And he just thinks he's like all that matters, and he's, no one of the other teams matter. If you just give me the ball all the time, we'd score and we'd win. That's his attitude. So Ted thinks he needs an attitude adjustment. So he brings up a player from the Mexican soccer league to play that same position. And so his name is Danny Rojas. And so he calls him up, and we see Ted Lasso and the team, and they're practicing. And then we hear from the locker room, na 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 na, Danny Rojas, Rojas, Danny Rojas. And this gorgeous man comes dashing out of, he gallops around in a circle, goes to the coaches, pumps their hand, and say, "Hello, coaches. Thank you so much for this opportunity." And Ted Lasso says, "Well, great. Why don't you go out and show us what you can do?" He says, "Yes, you got it, coach. Just like in Guadalajara. You tell me, I do it." And he runs off with his catchphrase, "Football is live." And of course, he's a fabulous player. It was like, whoa, and a fabulous human being, because he is Adam in the garden. He is a modern Adam who is in the garden and who knows it and is celebrating every bit. So his calling out his name was not from ego, it was just from exuberance. Ted Lasso calls him a joyous, raven-haired golden retriever. So he's great. I love Danny. But at the beginning of season 2, Danny tastes the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. There is a tragic accident, and Danny expels himself from the garden. And he's just inconsolable. And now he wakes up from a nightmare and screams out, "Football is death!" And he's so deep in the valley of fear that he can't control the ball at all. This man was a master, and now the ball goes anywhere but where he intends. But Danny had an advantage that Adam and Eve didn't. They hire him a psychologist, Dr. Sharon Fieldstone. And so she works with him, and next thing we know, the team is out on the field again, and we hear na 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 na, Danny Rojas runs on. He's like, "Hello, beautiful coaches. May I join the drill?" And Ted says, "Yeah, but take it at your own pace." Well, of course, he immediately gets the ball, and the entire team lines up against the goal line. And Danny narrows his eyes with intention. And he kicks the ball, and they're all jumping up. The ball sails over their fingers, but still drops down for the score. Yay! Danny Rojas is back. And everybody's so happy. And at the end of the day, in a quiet moment, Ted said, "Danny, what ended up helping you?" He said, "Dr. Sharon helped me to remember that while football is life, football is also death. And football is football too. But mostly that football is life." And I love that. That just incorporates all of what I've said in 4 sentences. It's my new mantra anytime I start going off the rails. Because that's the truth of what we love in this world. That what we love about it gives us life and love and connection with spirit and joy and all good things. But there's going to be there's going to be death. There's going to be loss. There's going to be pain. There's going to be sorrow. And then there's going to be all those times that are just bathing the baby, cooking the meals, driving the carpool. And only when we accept and embrace all of those, can we choose, and I choose, parenting is life. And so it is. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, and I'll say a quick blessing or prayer. And so this is what we do to turn around or turn away from the sometimes conflicting perspective of life in the multiverse, the physical multiverse, and really get in touch with the true, the eternal, which is God, which is always available to us, always there, always the truth of us. And I know for me that this is a place of wisdom and meaning and knowledge and connection and love. And that it helps me negotiate this complicated journey between the garden and the valley of fear and everything in between. But I know that I've chosen this for a reason. And that reason is my growth, or my expansion. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for the tools that we have that help us to negotiate this journey. I'm grateful for communities like this that help me to grow in both my appreciation of my earthly life and my connection to my spiritual world. And I know that this is a choice, and this is all a joy, even though sometimes our joy shows up as pain. So knowing that this understanding will move us all further, make our paths in the next few days, few weeks, a little bit easier, lift us up and lift up this world that we seek to make a world that works for everyone. So I just release it to the universe of love and law that always says yes, and ask you to affirm this for yourself and for us all with our words, and so it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was wonderful. And in the interest of a busy restaurant here at Sophie's, we are going to end today's service. Thank you so much for your presence here today. And as Dusty would say, we love you madly.